One of the biggest issues and traps that reed makers fall into, in my opinion, is playing on reeds that are too hard. And especially if you're just learning to make reeds, or maybe you've been making them for a year or two, and you're afraid to go too far because you might mess it up. That's so common, but you have to go a little too far one day to realize what too far actually is. If not, you're going to be playing on reeds that are just too hard and they make you tired, your embouchure wears out faster, and you might be a little flat too. Now let's take this reed for instance. I started it last week and I thought it had good bones, but I set it aside because it was just a little too hard and needed time to rest and things like that. So today I'm going to kind of evaluate this reed with you all, and we're going to make it play better. So always start with peeping the reed first, which is just putting the reed up the tip into the mouth. So not the whole reed to the thread, but just the tip. And you're just going to blow like you're trying to blow a candle flame and make it flicker, but you don't want it to blow out yet. So let's blow just that amount of air, just a little bit. Ooh, you can notice that peep. It took a little bit of effort to get it to come out. I could blow more air, which would be the same as like blowing out a candle flame, but that takes more effort and more energy, which the more energy, more effort you put into it, the more effort you're going to have when you play the oboe. And we want to make the oboe easy and fun. So not that we need easy reeds, but we need free blowing reeds. So if I put a little more effort into it, of course I get more sound, but the peep tells me this reed needs a little bit more out of the tip, a little more response. So part 2 is the crow. So after you peep it, you test the whole crow of the reed. And if you don't get much peep, you probably won't get a crow or much of one unless you force it and blow too much air. So the crow, you're going to put the reed closer to the thread in your mouth. I can get the lower crow out, but you'll notice it takes a little bit for the crow to come in. So now I'm going to show you where we're going to scrape to make this reed easier to play. Typically the response of your reed when you're doing the peep test, which is crowing or peeping just into the tip of the reed, you would focus on this area. So obviously the vibrations and the air enters through the very top, so that has to be thin. But the sides of the tip and the very sides of the reed, those are where you get your response. And all these hash marks are just different levels of cane. So the more hash marks, the thicker it is. But yeah, the vibrations come in. So if you're not getting a peep, then likely this area of your reed is too thick. So you'll want to thin that. Now, if we look at my reed right here, okay, the shading looks pretty nice. It actually looks pretty thin on the right side. You can kind of tell, like right there, it looks pretty thin. It's a little thicker on the left side. Let's turn it around. Again, pretty good. It could be the center part might be holding a little bit more vibration than we want, but you have to be careful because you don't want to remove too much. So first I'm just going to evaluate this reed since it was just a little hard. So that's the tip. So we'll probably do a little bit of work in the tip. But the next thing is if you get the peep and then you don't get much of the lower crow, or it takes a while for it to come in, that generally means the air comes in and then it hits a wall, usually around the heart area. So there's somewhere in your heart, likely, is too thick. And I tend to find that it's either you have a thick piece of cane in the heart that you haven't removed yet, or you need to work more on the side, not necessarily this whole drawing right there, but on the right side. Not at the very edge. You want to make sure you leave a little bit there by the rails, but right in here and right in here. Yeah, so let's check that out on this reed. And there are a lot of different ways and different reasons a reed can be hard, but this is one way to definitely get vibrations in. You can also look down the reed like this to see if there are any big, thick pieces of cane that you observe. Okay, the blend looks pretty good on this reed, actually. I will measure it. Okay, you can tell I'm right at 70. So I don't want to clip it anymore because I don't like my reeds to be shorter than 70. And then I'm just a hair shy of 66 for the tip corner. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on that side of the tip that was a little bit too thick. So let's find it here. Okay, it's a little too wet. Sometimes if it's a little too wet, it's hard to see what you're doing, so get that water out. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and scrape just a little bit. I do feel like this center of the tip is holding on just a little bit, just on the left-hand side. Because the tip in general is pretty thin. It's a little thick up there. Now, I do recommend if this is like the first day you've scraped it, let it rest. Make sure you're not trying to thin the tip too much too soon. The reed really needs to rest so the cane fibers can dry out, and you'll actually be able to see more in the cane once you let it dry out. The cane will darken generally, and it's just easier. Okay. Well, let's see what that did. Okay, I don't want to take any more out of the tip. I feel like I just want to take some. Here we go. Let's test the closure. Okay. Not bad. I'm going to take just a little bit. The left side of the reed of the heart here. I just feel it's a little thicker, and then on the right side. Okay, a little thick place right there. And this particular reed feels a little hefty in the throat of the reed, so I'm just going to remove a little bit of cane down there. That'll help it to close up if it's a little too open, which this reed is a little bit. Okay, so I haven't scraped a ton. I am going to hold it down with my fingers just because it's a little bit open. And let's see, let's peep it. Much better. Okay, do it again. Okay, I notice a little bit of tippiness when I tongue on it, and this right side of the tip over here is just a little longer, so I just narrowed that. Even it out. Okay. Yeah, and even just a little sliver of extra tip like that on the edge will make the reed vibrate more. It might be more than you need. So let's try it, see where we're at. Okay, it definitely freed it up a lot more, but I feel like there's an imbalance between the tip and the heart. So it's a bit too tippy for my liking. So I'm actually just gonna bring the tip line back a little bit and try to reserve as much cane, or preserve as much cane as I can in front of the tip line. So it's like I'm trying to build cane into my tip by moving this line back. And I'm not gonna get rid of this whole line. Okay, let's do the right side. Okay, it's almost like I've got a double tip going on for a minute. I just want to see what'll happen. Okay. And last side. Okay. Okay, let's see. I bet it freed it up a lot, actually. And let's give it a try. Okay, I still feel like it's a bit tippy. So I'm gonna give it just a hair of a clip. Like I said, I don't wanna clip it much because it's already 70. So literally just a hair came off. Okay, that got rid of some and it brought the pitch up a little bit. Let's try it now. All right, I'd say that's definitely a whole lot better. I'm gonna let it rest here and see what it's doing tomorrow. I hope that was helpful and helps you with your reeds if you're feeling they're a bit too hard. If so, or if you have a question, drop me a comment below. You can also check out some other resources I have to help you as you are doing your own scraping, which I will link in the description box. All right, see you next time.